For 7 years, Seraphine wore the veil that saved her life and destroyed it. Every morning, she wrapped the enchanted silk around her face, hiding the mark that would mean her death if discovered. The mark of a moon-blessed oracle, the rarest and most feared gift in all the northern realms. Her grandmother's trembling hands had placed the veil on her the night her powers manifested. "Never let them see, little star," the old woman had whispered, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "The kings of this world destroy what they cannot control. Beauty is forgiven, power is not." Seraphine had been 14 then, watching her reflection shimmer and change as the oracle mark bloomed across her left eye, a silver crescent that pulsed with otherworldly light. In that moment, she'd gone from the village healer's granddaughter to something dangerous, something hunted. The veil did more than hide her mark. It was woven with old magic, the kind that made people's gazes slide away, that made her forgettable, unremarkable. Beneath it, she could have been beautiful or plain, young or old. No one cared to look close enough to wonder. "Ghost Weaver," the children called her, running when she passed through the market square of Thornhaven. Parents clutched their little ones closer, whispering prayers against ill fortune. They knew nothing of her true nature, yet somehow, instinct warned them away. She learned to move through shadows, to keep her head down, to speak only when necessary. Her grandmother had taught her the healing arts before passing, and Seraphine traded tinctures and poultices for bread and shelter. She never stayed anywhere long enough for questions to arise. Never let anyone close enough to wonder why she wore the veil, even in summer's suffocating heat. But loneliness was a poison worse than any herb in her collection. Some nights, she'd stand before her small mirror and slowly unwrap the veil, watching the silver mark pulse with each heartbeat. It had grown over the years, spreading like frost across her cheekbone, beautiful and terrible. The mark of someone who could see the threads of fate itself. She'd tried once to ignore her gift, tried to pretend the visions didn't come. But when she'd seen the miller's son drowning 3 days before it happened and said nothing, his death had haunted her worse than any revealing would. So, she learned to guide fate subtly, a suggestion here, a mysteriously placed warning there. Always anonymous, always hidden. The worst part wasn't the isolation or the fear. It was knowing that somewhere in the capital, the Alpha King collected people like her. Not to kill them, as her grandmother had believed, but to use them. His blessed guard. They were called oracles and seers bound to his service, their powers twisted to serve his ambitions. She'd seen them once, passing through a distant town, empty-eyed and collar-bound, speaking prophecies on command like trained birds. Death would be kinder than such a fate. So Seraphine hid, survived, and pretended that the longing in her chest wasn't slowly killing her. Pretended that being unseen didn't feel like being erased from existence itself. She never imagined that one day, the Alpha King himself would come looking for her. The Alpha King arrived in Thornhaven on a storm-black morning, his entourage filling the narrow streets like spilled ink. Seraphine pressed herself against the apothecary's wall, veil pulled low, herbs clutched to her chest. She'd been foolish to venture out, but the old herbalist needed feverwort, and she'd thought the procession would pass through the main square. "You there," a voice called, not commanding, but curious. "Healer." She froze. The Alpha King himself sat atop his massive black destrier, studying her with eyes like fractured amber. Theron Blackmoor was younger than she'd imagined, perhaps 30 summers, with savage beauty that spoke of barely leashed violence. The silver crown on his dark hair seemed to capture what little light pierced the clouds. "Your Majesty." She dropped into a curtsy, keeping her face angled down. "My advisor has taken ill," he said, dismounting with predatory grace. "The local healer claims you have superior knowledge of remedies." Seraphine's mind raced. To refuse would draw suspicion. To accept would mean proximity to someone whose very bloodline was bred to detect the moon blessed. "I am honored to serve," she whispered. The advisor lay fevered in the finest inn, and Seraphine recognized the poison immediately: thornshade, subtle and expensive. Someone in the king's own court wanted this man dead. She could save him easily, but that would require using her true sight to see which organ systems were failing. "Can you help him?" The king's voice held an edge she couldn't interpret. "Perhaps," she said carefully, mixing common herbs while her gift screamed to be used. "Though some ailments are beyond mortal skill." "Are they?" He moved closer, and she smelled winter pine and steel. "How fortunate, then, that not all skills are mortal." Her hands stilled. He knew. Somehow, he knew. "Save him," the king continued, voice dropping to velvet. "Use whatever methods necessary. I'll ensure your privacy." Xiomara's sort of simonium so, tensure and tensioning in arises, sort of conses, the king continued voice. Xiomara's stories began with power. The room emptied at his gesture, leaving them alone with the dying man. Seraphine's hands shook as she reached for her veil. "If this was a trap, I'm not here to collar you, healer." The king turned his back, granting her dignity. "I'm here to offer you freedom." The lie was beautiful enough to hurt. She unwound the veil and let her sight unfurl, the silver mark blazing as fate threads became visible. The poison glowed like purple veins through the advisor's body, and she saw exactly how to draw it out. Her hands moved with precision, guided by visions of what would be. When she finished, the advisor breathed easily. Seraphine quickly rewrapped her veil, but not before the king turned. She saw his eyes widen, not with greed or revulsion, but with something like recognition. "Magnificent," he breathed. "The reports didn't do you justice." "Reports?" Horror crept up her spine. 7 years you've hidden. 7 years of anonymous miracles, mysterious warnings that save lives, healing that borders on impossible. He smiled, and it was almost kind. "Did you think the crown wouldn't notice patterns?" "I'll leave," she said quickly. "Tonight. You'll never. I'm not here to bind you to my guard." He pulled a scroll from his cloak. "I'm here to offer you something else entirely. A bargain that serves us both. What could you possibly offer except chains? A chance to use your gift openly. A title, lands, protection, a life where you never wear that veil again." His amber eyes held hers. "In exchange for 1 year of service, not as guard, but as my personal advisor. Your own chambers, your own choices, just. Thank you for watching. Counsel, when I ask for it." The offer was poison wrapped in honey, but after 7 years of hiding, even beautiful lies sounded like salvation. 3 moons passed before Seraphine understood the true weight of her decision. The Alpha King had kept his word technically. She had chambers in the crystal spire, silk gowns instead of rough wool, and servants who bobbed curtsies without fleeing. But the collar around her throat, though made of moonstone instead of iron, was still a collar. "You said I wouldn't be guard," she reminded him one evening, fingers tracing the delicate chain. "You're not," Theron replied, not looking up from his war maps. "The guard wear iron and answer to my generals. You wear moonstone and answer only to me." The distinction mattered little when the result was the same. Each dawn, he summoned her to the throne room, where she stood veiled, He'd insisted she maintain the mystery for court appearances and whispered futures into his ear. Which noble plotted betrayal? Which trade route would prosper? Which enemy would strike first? Her gift had grown stronger without the constant suppression. Sometimes visions came unbidden, showing her threads of possibility that made her gasp. She saw the kingdom's future branching like a tree. Some paths led to prosperity, others to flame and ruin. Always, the Alpha King stood at the crossroads, his choices shaping fate itself. "Tell me about the western marshes," he commanded one morning. "Lord Caine requests additional troops." Seraphine let her sight unfurl, following threads of possibility. What she saw made her stomach clench. Grant his request, and within 2 moons he'll use those troops to seize the border towns. Deny him, and he'll ally with your enemies out of spite. Then what would you counsel? She'd learned to navigate his moods, to speak truth wrapped in strategy. Send troops, but under the command of his rival's son. Frame it as an honor. Caine won't dare revolt with hostile forces in his own keep. Most werewolf stories begin with hostile forces. Most werewolf stories begin with power and dominance. The king's rare smile flickered. "Clever little oracle. What would I do without you?" "Die within the year," she didn't say. She'd seen that future too. Assassination, betrayal, a kingdom torn apart. Every counsel she gave nudged fate away from that dark path, though she couldn't say why she cared. Nights were harder. In her luxurious prison, she unwound the veil and stared at her reflection. The mark had spread further, silver fractals now reaching her jaw and temple. Beautiful, the king had called it. But she saw only the visible proof of her cage. Ghostweaver, she whispered to the mirror. At least that name had been hers to choose. She wasn't the only curiosity in Theron's collection. The court hosted shapeshifters who danced between forms, witches who painted illusions in smoke, and a boy who could speak to ravens. But they all wore iron. Only Seraphine bore moonstone. Only she walked unveiled to the king's chambers for private counsel. "Why trust me?" she asked one night, after revealing an assassination plot by his own cousin. "Your gift is truth-seeing, yet you keep an oracle who could lie about any future." "Because you haven't lied." He turned from the window, amber eyes unreadable. "Not once. I've tested you against my own sight, had spies verify your predictions. Every word has proven true. Maybe I'm playing a longer game. Maybe." He moved closer, and her breath caught. "Or maybe 7 years of hiding taught you that truth is its own power." She wanted to hate him. This king who'd trapped her with kindness, who'd given her golden chains instead of iron ones. But when he looked at her, truly looked, as if the veil meant nothing, something in her chest twisted painfully. 1 year, she reminded herself. Then freedom. If either of them survived that long. The accusation came on the night of the harvest moon, when the court celebrated with wine and wolfsbane. Seraphine stood in her designated shadow beside the throne, watching nobles dance while her visions flickered with warnings. Something dark threaded through the future paths, a convergence of malice she couldn't quite grasp. "Seize her." The command shattered the music. Lord Caine strode through the dancers, pointing an accusing finger at Seraphine. Behind him marched temple guards in white robes, their iron chains clanking with each step. The court fell silent, wolves scenting blood. "What is the meaning of this?" Theron's voice could have frozen flame. "Your Majesty has been deceived," Caine declared, producing a scroll with the High Temple's seal. "This creature you harbor isn't just moon-blessed. She's a fate weaver, one who doesn't merely see futures but shapes them. Every word she speaks alters destiny itself." Gasps rippled through the hall. Seraphine's knees nearly buckled. How had they discovered what she'd hidden even from herself? "She's been manipulating you," Caine continued, triumph gleaming in his eyes. "Every counsel, every whispered future, all designed to serve her own ends. The temple demands her immediate execution, as decreed by ancient law." "You dare make demands in my hall?" Theron rose, power radiating from him like heat. "The law is clear," the lead temple guard interjected. "Fate weavers corrupt reality itself. Their very existence threatens the natural order. She must burn before the next dawn, or the kingdom itself is forfeit to divine judgment." Seraphine found her voice. "I've harmed no one. Every vision I shared was true." "Truth twisted to your design," Caine snarled. "You denied me the western marshes, prevented my rightful expansion. This is how you repay those who see through your deceptions." Lies. But even as she protested, she saw the trap's elegance. Caine had lost his border ambitions thanks to her counsel. This was revenge, painted in religious fervor. The temple guard stepped forward. "Surrender her, your majesty, or face excommunication. The entire kingdom will turn against a godless king." Seraphine felt the court's mood shift. Fear of divine wrath outweighed loyalty. She saw her death in a dozen futures flame. Iron, mob justice. Her mark burned beneath the veil as visions crashed over her. "Power. I invoke the right of contest." Theron's words cut through her panic. Shocked silence. Then the temple guard spoke carefully. "That right hasn't been claimed in 2 centuries. Yet it remains law," the king said. "A monarch may contest religious judgment through divine trial. If my champion prevails, the accused is proven innocent. And if your champion fails, both they and the accused burn," Caine sneered. "Who would risk such a fate for a lying oracle?" Theron's smile was sharp as his crown. "I would." The hall erupted. Seraphine stared at the king, unable to process his words. He would face the temple's trials himself? For her? "Your Majesty, no," she breathed. "You don't understand what you're risking, perfectly." "I understand perfectly." His amber eyes found hers. "The trials begin at dawn. 3 tests judged by heaven itself. Prepare yourself, Oracle. We have much to discuss. We have—" "This is foolishness," Caine sputtered. "You'd risk your throne for a witch?" "I risk nothing," Theron said coldly. "Truth requires no defense. If she is what you claim, the trials will reveal it. If not," his gaze promised retribution, "then we'll discuss the penalty for false testimony before the crown." As guards escorted her to secure chambers for her protection, they claimed Seraphine's gift screamed warnings. The trials would be corrupted, she saw, Caine had ensured it. And Theron would die for a truth she'd never told him. She was exactly what they accused her of being, a fate weaver, the last of her kind, whose every word shaped tomorrow. The king had just wagered his life on her innocence. And she was guilty. The king came to her chambers as the moon reached its apex. Seraphine had been pacing, her visions fracturing into 1,000 doomed paths. Each one ended the same. Theron dead, herself burning. The kingdom plunged into civil war. "Remove your veil," he commanded softly. "Your Majesty." "Please." The words sounded foreign on his lips. "If I'm to die tomorrow, I'd see the face I'm dying for." With trembling fingers, she unwound the silk. The silver mark blazed in the candlelight, spreading like living moonlight across her skin. She waited for disgust, for the fear she'd seen in every face for 7 years. Instead, Theron stepped closer. "Extraordinary," he murmured. "Do you know what you truly are?" "A monster," she whispered. Caine spoke truth. I don't just see fate, I shape it. Every future I reveal becomes more likely. Every warning I give alters what will be. I know. Hellifer, she jerked back. You. What? My gift shows me truth, remember? His smile held bitter edges. I've known since the first day. Why do you think I wanted you here? A seer shows possibilities. A fate weaver creates them. Then you know the trials tomorrow are already corrupted. Yes, Caine has ensured the challenges will be impossible. The temple wants you dead and me discredited. He moved to the window, profile sharp against starlight. But you're going to change that. I can't. The words ripped from her throat. Don't you understand? Every future I've seen ends in death. Yours if you take the trials, mine if you don't. There's no path where we both survive. Then make one. She stared at him. That's not how it works. I can only influence existing possibilities, not create them from nothing. Really? He turned back, amber eyes burning. For 3 moons, you've counseled me. Every word carefully chosen, every future precisely revealed. You've been weaving fate around me since the beginning. Heat flooded her cheeks. He was right. She'd told herself she was merely surviving, but every vision she'd shared had nudged the kingdom toward stability, toward justice, toward a future where a veiled healer mattered to a king. Why? She asked. Why risk everything for someone who's manipulated fate itself? Because you've had the power to destroy me since the moment we met. He crossed to her, close enough that she felt his warmth. One false vision, one misleading counsel, and I'd be dead. Instead, you've saved my life 13 times. You counted? Permin. I count everything about you. His hand rose, hovering near her marked cheek. You think I collected you like the others? You're not my pet oracle, Seraphine. You're my salvation. Her breath caught. Theron, the kingdom teeters on the edge of chaos. Noble houses plot rebellion. The temple grows corrupt, and enemies mass at our borders. I needed someone who could see the paths through darkness. His voice dropped. I needed you. And when my year of service ends? That contract was a fiction for the court. You were never bound to leave. He pulled a different scroll from his coat. This is the real agreement. Sign it, and become not my advisor but my queen. Rule beside me. Shape our fate together. Shape our fate together. Seraphine's gift exploded with visions. She saw herself crowned in moonstone, standing as his equal. Saw the kingdom flourishing under their joint rule. Saw knights tangled together, sharing more than prophecy. But she also saw the price. Every enemy would target her. The temple would never stop hunting. And her power would grow beyond control, warping reality with each passing year. There's another way, she said slowly, visions shifting as she spoke. The trials tomorrow, what if we turn them into something else? Explain. Caine expects you to face physical challenges. Combat, endurance, tests of strength where his corrupted judges can ensure failure. She began to pace, fate threads weaving around her words. But the ancient laws are specific. The trials must test worthiness, not just prowess. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Clever oracle, what do you propose? Let me take the trials instead. Absolutely not. Listen. She caught his hands, power flowing between them. A test of truth. Let them question me before the court, under holy oath. Your gift can verify every word. If I can prove my innocence through truth alone, the temple would have to accept the verdict. He studied her face. But Caine will twist every question, trap you in theological riddles. Then help me. She squeezed his hands. You know truth. I shape fate. Together, we might survive this. Together? He repeated, then pulled her against him. Whatever happens tomorrow, know this, I would choose you across 1,000 futures. And she felt the paths solidify around his words, fate crystallizing into possibility. Perhaps they had a chance after all. Dawn came wrapped in mist and ceremony. The great sept stood at the kingdom's heart, its obsidian spires piercing the sky like accusations. Seraphine walked veiled between temple guards, moonstone collar catching the pale light. Behind her, Theron's presence burned steady as a forge. The sept's interior defied mortal architecture. Pillars of living shadow supported a ceiling of captured stars, and the floor reflected possibilities showing not what was, but what might be. At the chamber's heart grew the tree of judgment, its silver bark inscribed with every law since the first kingdom. Behold the accused! The High Inquisitor's voice echoed from everywhere and nowhere. Seraphine had expected an elderly priest. Instead, a figure materialized from the shadows, ageless, androgynous, with eyes like holes in reality. Not mortal, her gift whispered. Not entirely. Fate Weaver, the Inquisitor continued. You stand accused of corrupting destiny itself. How do you answer? I claim innocence through trial of truth, Seraphine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Let heaven judge my words. Very well. The Inquisitor smiled, and she glimpsed too many teeth. But know that in this sacred space lies burn the tongue. Deception stops the heart. Are you prepared? Theron stepped forward. I stand as witness to truth. Quote, a mortal king's gift means nothing here, the Inquisitor dismissed. But there is another who would observe. The temperature plummeted. From behind the tree stepped a figure that made Seraphine's mark burn like ice, tall and terrible, wreathed in silver flame, with wings of shadow and starlight. The archive angel keeper of all futures that never were. Quote, interesting. The angel spoke in harmonics that hurt to hear. A fate weaver in the age of iron. We thought your kind extinct. As was intended, the Inquisitor added with satisfaction. Their power corrupts the natural order. Does it? The angel circled Seraphine, wings brushing reality's edge. Or does fear corrupt those who would control fate's flow? Caine pushed forward from the crowd of witnesses. The law is clear. She must burn. Silence. The angel's word was physical force. I will judge this trial. Ask your questions, Inquisitor. Let us see what truth reveals. Powerty. The Inquisitor's impossible eyes fixed on Seraphine. Remove your veil. She unwound the silk, letting her mark blaze freely. Gasps echoed through the sept, but the angel merely nodded, as if confirming something. First question. The Inquisitor began. Have you used your power to alter fate's course? The compulsion to lie died on her tongue. In this space, only truth could exist. Yes. Triumph flickered across Caine's face, but the Inquisitor continued. For what purpose? To save lives, to prevent suffering, to guide the kingdom away from civil war. Yet each change creates ripples, the Inquisitor pressed. Futures that should have been, lives that would have existed. You've stolen infinite possibilities. I've chosen among them, Seraphine countered, as every mortal does with each decision. But mortals lack the sight to know what they destroy. Do they? The words poured from her, powered by truth's compulsion. A mother who shields her child from plague changes 1,000 futures. A king who chooses mercy over justice reshapes the world. A farmer who plants wheat instead of barley alters the course of nations. Choices change. I simply see the weight of it. The angel laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. She speaks wisdom, Inquisitor. Continue. Do you love the Alpha King? The question hit like a physical blow. Seraphine felt Theron tense behind her, but in this space, there could be no deception. Yes. The word escaped before she could think. I love him with a depth that terrifies me. I would weave 1,000 doomed futures to keep him safe. And there, the Inquisitor pounced. You admit to corrupting fate for personal desire. I admit to being mortal, she shot back. To having a heart that beats and breaks like any other. If love is corruption, then every soul stands guilty. Pretty words, the angel mused. But the Inquisitor raises a valid point. How do we know your love hasn't twisted your sight? That you haven't shaped futures to serve your heart's desire? Seraphine felt the trap closing. But before she could answer, Theron spoke. May I ask a question? The angel's attention shifted. You may not speak for her, King of Iron. I don't speak for her. I speak to her. He moved closer, amber eyes holding hers. Seraphine. In all the futures you've seen, in all the paths you've shaped, have you ever woven one where you are free? The question shattered something inside her, because the answer, no, she whispered, tears sliding down her marked cheek. In every future I've touched, I remain bound. To you, to duty, to the gift I never asked for. I've saved others but never myself. I've shaped 1,000 happinesses but never my own. Silence filled the sept. Even the Inquisitor seemed struck by the admission. Well, the angel said finally, that changes things considerably. The first test begins now, the archive angel declared, wings reshaping reality around them. The sept dissolved, replaced by a circular chamber of pure white stone. 3 pedestals rose from the floor, each bearing an object that shouldn't exist. Prasad, the trial of wisdom, the Inquisitor announced with malicious pleasure. Choose correctly, or burn. On the first pedestal, a mirror that reflected no image, its surface swirling with void. On the second, a crown of living flame that cast no heat, burning eternally without consumption. On the third, a simple wooden cup filled with what looked like starlight. One grants power absolute, the angel explained. One grants freedom from fate. One grants death disguised as gift. Choose. Choose. Seraphine's gift reached out, trying to read the futures each object offered. But the visions fractured and scattered these artifacts existed outside normal possibility. She caught Theron's eye, saw his truth sight straining against the same barriers. How long do I have? She asked. Until the candle burns to nothing. A black candle materialized, already half consumed. Choose wisely, Fate Weaver. Your king's life hangs in the balance alongside your own. Caine watched from the chamber's edge, poorly concealed satisfaction on his face. He knew something, had arranged something, but what? Seraphine circled the pedestals, studying each artifact. The mirror of void pulled at her, promising escape from the endless visions. The crown blazed with authority that could reshape nations. The cup sat innocent, almost humble in its simplicity. In the old stories, she said slowly, tests like these are never what they seem. Stories lie, the Inquisitor countered. As do fate weavers. Do they? She touched her mark, feeling its pulse accelerate. Or do they tell truths too large for simple words? The candle burned lower. She had to choose, but every instinct screamed danger. Then she noticed Theron had shifted position slightly, angling himself so she could see his hands. He was signing in the old hunter's language they'd discovered in his library, practicing during their evening sessions. Not real. Test is the choice itself. Her heart leaped. Of course. In a trial of wisdom, the wisest choice was often not to choose at all. But that seemed too simple. The angel wouldn't accept. "I refuse all three," she declared. The Inquisitor smiled triumphantly. "Then you fail. Burn her." "I'm not finished." Seraphine stepped back from the pedestals. "I refuse them because they're all the same object." Silence crashed through the chamber. Even the angel's wings stilled. "Explain," it commanded. "The mirror offers freedom from fate, but what is death but the ultimate escape from destiny? The crown promises absolute power, but absolute power over fate is death to possibility itself. The cup seems harmless, but starlight is the light of dead suns, beautiful corpses in the void." She met the angel's ancient gaze. "All three are death, merely dressed in different illusions." "Clever," the Inquisitor spat. "But you must still choose. The test demands it." "No," Theron stepped forward. "The test demands wisdom. She's shown it by recognizing the trap." "You dare speak in her trial?" The Inquisitor's form writhed with anger. "I dare because the test is corrupted." His truth sight blazed. Lord Caine paid temple guards to ensure all choices led to death. The real artifacts were replaced. Caine's face went white. "Lies! You can't prove it." "I can see the gold exchanging hands." Theron continued ruthlessly. "The midnight meeting in the lower sanctum. The priest who died when he protested the deception." "Fascinating," the angel breathed. It waved one wing, and the three artifacts crumbled to ash. "It seems we have multiple crimes to judge today." "This proves nothing," the Inquisitor insisted. "She could have known, could have arranged. Could a mere mortal corrupt objects blessed by my own hand?" The angel's voice dropped to dangerous frequencies. "Are you suggesting I lack the power to protect my own trials?" The Inquisitor fell silent. "The first test is passed," the angel declared. "Wisdom shown not in choosing power, but in recognizing deception. Proceed to the second trial." As reality shifted around them again, Seraphine caught a glimpse of Caine's face. His carefully laid trap had failed, but his expression promised worse to come. The second test would not be corrupted by mortal hands. It would be corrupted by something far more dangerous. The second trial's setting stole Seraphine's breath. They stood in a garden that shouldn't exist. Roses bloomed from crystalline stems, their petals shifting through every color of sunset. Fountains sang with voices like distant stars, and the air itself tasted of possibility. Quote, "The trial of heart," the angel announced, though its tone held new wariness. "Here, you face not deception but desire." "I don't understand," Seraphine said, though her gift whispered warnings. This place felt different from the sept's austere holiness. It felt alive. "Understanding isn't required." A new voice, silk wrapped around steel. "Only choosing." From between the crystal roses stepped a figure that made the archive angel's wings flutter nervously. Beautiful beyond mortal comprehension, with eyes like the void between stars, and a smile that promised everything. "No," the angel breathed. "You have no authority here." "Don't I?" The figure circled Seraphine with predatory grace. "A fate weaver stands trial. By ancient compact, I have every right to test her." "What are you?" Seraphine asked, though her mark burned with the answer. "I am the inevitable." The being's form shifted, sometimes male, sometimes female, sometimes neither, always perfect. The future that calls to every heart. The destiny desired above all others. "I am what you truly want, Fate Weaver, freed from the chains of duty and fear." Theron stepped protectively closer, but the inevitable laughed. "Oh, the young king may watch, may even speak. This trial permits intimacy. The garden reshaped itself, becoming a palace of dreams. Seraphine stood in a great hall where tapestries wove themselves from moonlight, where music played that made the soul ache with longing. She wore not her simple robes but a gown of living starlight, her mark transformed from curse to crown. This is what awaits, the inevitable purred. Not the half-life you've accepted, but true power, true freedom. Freedom. Seraphine forced skepticism into her voice, though the vision pulled at her heart. You mean servitude to you instead of him? I mean partnership. The being gestured, and the scene shifted. She saw herself standing over a great loom, threads of fate flowing through her fingers like water. But unlike the painful visions that plagued her, these threads sang with joy. She wasn't forced to see futures. She painted them like an artist, creating realities with each gentle touch. Your gift was never meant to be a burden, the inevitable continued. Quote, the mortal world makes it one, forcing you to hide, to diminish, to serve. But in the spaces between, where I rule, you would be a goddess of possibility itself. And the price? Because there was always a price. Leave. The word hung in the air like a blade. Step sideways from this reality into the infinite. Abandon the mortal realm and all its petty struggles. Why shape one kingdom's fate when you could craft entire worlds? The vision expanded. She saw herself walking through fields of probability, each step creating new timelines. Saw worlds where suffering never touched, where every choice led to joy. The power of it sang in her bones. Seraphine. Theron's voice, carefully neutral. Remember why we're here. To prove my innocence, she said. But the words felt hollow. What was innocence compared to this? To return home, he corrected softly. Together. The inevitable's laugh was like breaking bells. Home? To what? More hiding? More careful words to avoid revealing too much power? More nights weeping because you've seen his death in 100 futures, and can prevent none of them? Seraphine flinched. That was her deepest fear, that for all her power, she couldn't save what mattered most. But I can, the being continued, form shifting to mirror her own face perfected. Accept my offer, and I'll show you how to break fate's chains entirely. Save not just him, but everyone. Forever. Pode. Show me, she whispered. Seraphine. No. Theron started. Let her choose freely, the inevitable commanded. And suddenly Theron stood frozen, able to watch but not interfere. The being took her hands, and power flooded through her. Not the painful burn of visions, but pure creative force. She saw how to unweave the curse from its root, how to reshape the kingdom's future without constraint. How to ensure Theron lived not just through the trials, but for centuries to come. All this and more. The inevitable promised. Simply say yes. Step sideways with me into the infinite. Leave behind the small minds who fear your gift. And Theron? Her voice broke on his name. Would forget you existed. A kindness, really. No pain of loss, no empty throne beside him. He'd find a proper queen, bear heirs, rule well. The kingdom would prosper without the chaos a fate weaver brings. She looked at him, frozen mid-step, amber eyes wide with fear for her. He'd risked everything, crown, life, soul, for a cursed oracle who'd done nothing but complicate his existence. Maybe he would be better off. You're right, she said quietly. He would be safer without me. The inevitable smile was triumphant. Then you accept. But I'm selfish. She pulled her hands free. Too selfish to give him that kindness. too mortal to choose the greater good over my own heart. She stepped back. I refuse your offer. You would choose mortality? Choose pain and limitation and loss? I choose him, she said simply. Flawed futures and all. The perfect palace crumbled. Quote, the inevitable's beautiful mask slipped, revealing something ancient and hungry beneath. Fool, you could have been infinite. Ah, I prefer being finite, Seraphine replied. With him, the garden dissolved, leaving them back in the white chamber. Theron immediately pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking. Pew. That was the shaper of lost futures, the angel said quietly. Few refuse its gifts. Fewer still survive the refusal. Then why am I? Because you chose love over power, connection over perfection. The angel's wings brightened. The second trial is past, power. But the third. Its gaze found the inquisitor, who had watched the whole exchange with growing rage. The third trial is mine to give, the inquisitor hissed, and mercy has no place in it. The third trial's chamber was neither beautiful nor terrible, simply a circular room with stone walls that wept constant tears. In the center sat two chairs facing each other, plain wood worn smooth by centuries of use. The trial of truth absolute, the inquisitor announced with vicious satisfaction. No visions, no futures, no clever words. Simply questions and answers, with death as the price of any falsehood. She already passed a trial of truth, Theron protested. That tested wisdom in recognizing lies. This tests courage in speaking truth. The inquisitor's form solidified into something almost human, an old woman with eyes like wounds. Sit, Fate Weaver. Seraphine took one chair. The inquisitor took the other. You may ask no questions, the inquisitor continued. Make no statements save an answer. Any deviation means death. The king may not interfere, though he may witness. A cruel smile. Let him hear what you truly are. Begin, the angel commanded. The inquisitor leaned forward. How many futures have you seen where the Alpha King dies? The compulsion hit like a physical blow. 837. She heard Theron's sharp intake of breath but couldn't look at him. How many have you prevented? 43. And the rest? Remain possible. Some likely, some distant, all potential. Which disturbs your sleep most? Tears gathered in her eyes. The one where he dies saving me, where he throws himself between me and a blade meant for my heart, where I live because he doesn't. Have you taken steps to prevent this particular future? No. Why? Power. The words ripped from her throat. Because preventing it requires me to leave, to never give him reason to love me enough to die for me. And I'm too selfish to go. So you would let him die for your happiness? Yes. The admission burned. I hate myself for it, but yes. The inquisitor's smile widened. Tell me about the futures you've hidden from him. Which ones? Because there were so many, Possumas. The ones where you bear his children. Seraphine's hands clenched. I've seen 3 timelines where we have children, where the kingdom accepts a fate weaver queen, where our daughter inherits both gifts, truth sight, and fate weaving combined. And in every one, she dies before her 20th birthday, assassinated, experimented on. Driven mad by the weight of seeing and shaping simultaneously. Tears flowed freely now. So I've resolved if we survive this to take precautions. He doesn't know I've seen this future and already decided. You would deny him heirs for your own fear? I would deny him the agony of losing a child, of watching our daughter suffer as I have. What else have you hidden? The revolution, Primarius. Explain. Manius, in 6 of 10 futures, the people rise against the nobility within 5 years. Blood in the streets. The kingdom tears itself apart. She forced herself to continue. I've been guiding things. Subtle suggestions that ease tensions, warnings that prevent the worst abuses, shaping fate toward the 4 futures where change comes peacefully. And well, without telling your king his kingdom stands on the edge of revolt? He has enough burdens. I carry this one for him. How noble. The Inquisitor's voice dripped poison. Tell me, in how many futures do you betray him? None. Lie. The truth? Fate weaver, or burn. Seraphine closed her eyes. One, only one, where the temple captures me, tortures me until my mind breaks. Where they use my broken gift to destroy everything he's built. Where I kill him myself to prevent that future, making it look like enemies did it. When? 3 years from now. If we both survive today. And you would do it? Kill the man you love? To save the kingdom? To prevent the horror I'd become from unmaking everything? Her voice broke entirely. Yes, and I pray every night that future never comes to pass. Silence filled the chamber. Seraphine finally risked looking at Theron. His face was marble, unreadable. One final question, the Inquisitor said softly. Do you love him more than you love yourself? Yes. Then why do you stay? Knowing your presence dooms him. And there it was. The heart of every guilt, every nightmare, every self-hatred that plagued her. Because, Seraphine whispered, I'm not good enough to leave. Not strong enough to save him from myself. Not brave enough to face existence without him. She met the Inquisitor's ancient gaze. Because I am selfish, and flawed, and mortal, and I would rather damn us both than live apart. The Inquisitor sat back, something like satisfaction on her weathered face. Truth absolute, ugly and beautiful, and human. She stood, complete. The trial is complete? Did I pass? Seraphine asked numbly. That, the Inquisitor said, is not for me to judge. All eyes turned to the Archive Angel, whose wings had gone very still. Rise, the Archive Angel commanded, and Seraphine stood on shaking legs. The trial chamber expanded, reality bending to accommodate the angel's spreading wings. The trials are complete. Now comes judgment. She confessed to treason. Lord Caine burst out, unable to contain himself. To manipulating the crown, hiding vital intelligence. Silence. The angel's word was law. You who corrupted sacred trials have no voice here. The Inquisitor proved her guilt. Caine persisted desperately. She admitted to planning regicide. She admitted to seeing a future where mercy might demand sacrifice. Theron spoke for the first time since the trial began. His voice was steady, but Seraphine saw the storm in his amber eyes. To carrying burdens alone rather than sharing them. To being human. You would still defend her? The Inquisitor seemed genuinely curious. After learning of her deceptions? They weren't deceptions. They were protection. He moved to stand beside Seraphine, though we will discuss the matter of hidden truths later. Despite everything, warmth bloomed in her chest at the we. Touching, the angel said. But judgment requires more than mortal sentiment. Its attention fixed on Seraphine, with weight that made her knees buckle. You are guilty of everything accused. You have shaped fate. You have hidden truths. You have chosen personal desire over greater good. You are also innocent of malice. Every future you've shaped has been toward preservation, not destruction. Every truth hidden has been to spare pain, not gain power. Every selfish choice has been love, not ambition. So which judgment stands? the Inquisitor demanded. Both. Neither. The angel's wings shifted through impossible spectrums. She is guilty of being mortal, of wielding power imperfectly, of choosing heart over wisdom. These are not crimes, they are the nature of existence itself. The law demands. The law demands justice, not vengeance painted in righteousness. The angel's form blazed brighter, but there is a price for power. There always island. Seraphine's heart sank. Name it, choose. The word rippled through realities. I offer 3 paths, each with its cost. The chamber shifted, showing 3 doorways. First, accept the temple's judgment. Burn for your crimes, but in doing so, break the chain of fate. Your death ends the futures you've seen. The kingdom finds its own path, free from your influence. The Alpha King lives or dies by his own choices, not your sight. Seraphine stared at the doorway wreathed in flame. It would be so simple. One moment of agony to free everyone from the weight of her visions. Second, accept my blessing. Become what the inevitable offered, a true shaper of fates. Leave mortality behind. Guide not just one kingdom but all realities toward justice. But never again touch mortal life directly. Watch from afar, guide but never hold, love but never be loved. The second door shimmered with starlight. Power beyond imagining, but lonelier than her years of hiding. Third, remain as you are, mortal, flawed, cursed with sight that brings as much sorrow as salvation. But, the angel paused. The gift changes. No longer will you see all futures unbidden. Only when you choose to look, only when wisdom, not fear, guides your sight. That's no punishment, Caine protested. Isn't it? The angel's gaze never left Seraphine. To have power but restraint? To know you could see every danger but must choose blindness to live? To walk beside mortality knowing godhood was offered and refused? What of the mark? Seraphine touched her silver-traced cheek. Remains. You are what you are, fate weaver, last of your kind. But controlled, not controlling. And if I lose control? Then the restraints break, and you face this choice again, perhaps with less mercy. Seraphine looked at each door. Death to free others, godhood to guide them, or mortality with all its messy imperfection, power. You know which I'll choose, she said quietly. I know which futures show you choosing, but knowing and choosing are different things. She turned to Theron. I've hidden so much from you. Might hide more, even with restraints. You could have a normal queen, an heir, a simpler path. I could have many things, he interrupted. I choose you, complications and all. But the choice must be yours. Together? She asked, echoing their words from the night before. Always. She faced the angel. I choose the third path, mortality, with all its failures. Even knowing the pain it brings? Especially then. She took Theron's hand. Pain shared is pain halved. Joy shared is joy doubled. That's the arithmetic of mortal love. The angel laughed. Bright and terrible. Wisdom at last. Not despite mortality, but because of it. Light blazed through the chamber. When it faded, they stood in the Sept's main hall. But something had changed. The oppressive holiness had lifted, replaced by simple stone and candlelight. Human space, not divine, plied. The trials are complete, the angel announced to the assembled crowd. The fate weaver is judged worthy. Her gift serves the kingdom by choice, not compulsion. Any who move against her move against heaven's will. This is outrageous, Caine stepped forward. She admitted to the angel's wing brushed him, just barely. he crumbled to ash. Justice. The angel said simply, for corrupted trials, for false witness, for the priest murdered to hide your schemes. It turned to the inquisitor. Your temple requires cleansing. See to it. The inquisitor bowed deep and vanished. As for you, the angel regarded Theron and Seraphine. Rule well, love honestly, and remember heaven is watching. It dissolved into light, leaving them alone with a very stunned court. The journey back to the palace passed in tense silence. Seraphine sat beside Theron in the royal carriage, acutely aware of the distance between them despite their clasped hands. The court followed in a processional that felt more like a funeral march than a triumph. Her moonstone collar had vanished with the angel's judgment, but she still felt its phantom weight. 837, he said finally. Yes, and you carry that weight alone, every day, seeing my death in countless ways. Yes. His hand tightened on hers. No more. The angel's binding. I won't see futures unless I choose to look. And that's not what I mean. He turned to face her fully. No more carrying burdens alone. No more protecting me from hard truths. We rule together or not at all. Even knowing I might have to, she couldn't finish. Even then, his thumb traced her palm. Though we'll work to ensure that future never comes to pass. They reached the palace as sunset painted the sky in shades of prophecy. The great hall had been prepared for celebration, but the atmosphere was subdued. Courtiers who had whispered behind fans now watched with open wariness. A proven fate weaver in their midst, bound to their king, the political implications staggered. Your Majesty, Lord Aldrich, the royal steward, approached carefully. The court awaits your guidance on how to proceed with the situation. Seraphine almost smiled. Even now, she was the situation. Summon them all, Theron commanded. Every noble, every advisor, every servant who wishes to hear. It's time for truth absolute. Within an hour, the hall filled. Seraphine stood beside the throne, veil abandoned, mark blazing in the candlelight. Whispers rose like tide. Silence, Theron said, and the hall obeyed. You have questions. Ask them. Can she control our minds? Lady Roswen called out, voice pitched with fear. No, Seraphine answered directly. I see possible futures. I can influence them by sharing what I see, but I cannot make anyone do anything. What about our secrets? Lord Valence demanded. Our private choices? I see patterns, not details. Unless I specifically look for your future, which now requires conscious choice and considerable effort, your secrets remain your own. But you could look, someone pressed. Could see our plans, our schemes. Yes, she wouldn't lie. As His Majesty can discern truth from falsehood, as Lady Roswen can speak to animals, as Lord Valence can sense precious metals through solid stone. We all have gifts. Mine simply frightens you more, because yours shapes reality itself. Duke Heron stood. You admitted to guiding the kingdom's fate without our knowledge or consent. I prevented a civil war you didn't know was coming, she replied calmly. Guided away futures where this hall ran red with blood, where your children died in streets. Would you prefer I had let those futures unfold? Uncomfortable silence. Here is my offer, Theron said. Lady Seraphine will serve as royal oracle, openly and honestly. Once each month, any who wish may petition for her sight. She will look into your futures if you consent and share what she sees. The choice to act on that knowledge remains yours alone. And if we don't trust her sight? Heron challenged. Then don't ask for it. Theron's voice carried steel. But know this, she has saved this kingdom 43 times. Every one of you lives because she shaped fate away from catastrophe. The least you can offer is respect. What of heirs? The question came from old Lord Balin, too ancient for political niceties. Will your children carry this curse? Seraphine flinched. Theron's hand found hers. That future remains unwritten, he said firmly. When we choose to look, we'll face what we find together. If there are no further questions, Lord Aldrich began. Wait, Seraphine stepped forward. There's something else. Something the trials revealed that you all must know. Theron frowned. Seraphine? She'd seen this moment in fractured glimpses, known it would come. The third door had given her control, but some truths demanded revelation. In 6 of every 10 futures, revolution comes to this kingdom within 5 years. The hall erupted. Order! Theron roared. When silence fell, he turned to her. Explain. The people suffer while nobility prospers. The gap widens daily. Without change, real change, not mere promises, blood will flow. She addressed the court. This is not prophecy, but probability. Not fate, but choice. You can prevent this future by choosing differently. Fair wages, just laws, shared prosperity. The revolution comes only if you continue as you are. You threaten us? Duke Heron snarled. I warn you. As I warned of the drought 3 years ago that you prepared for. As I warned of the border raid you prevented. This is my duty to show you the cliff before you walk off it. And if we don't believe you, then in 5 years, remember this moment. Remember you were warned. She felt the futures shifting around her words, probability lines realigning. Some nobles looked thoughtful, others angry, but the seed was planted. Enough, Theron said. You have your oracle. Use her wisdom or ignore it at your peril. Court dismissed. Comser, Kama Comser. As nobles filed out, murmuring, Seraphine sagged against the throne. The day's wait crashed down trials, revelations, transformations. You realize what you've done? Theron asked quietly. Started a different revolution. One of minds rather than swords. Clever oracle. But his smile was proud. Though next time, perhaps warn your king before upending his entire court? Where would be the fun in that? He pulled her close. We have much to discuss. Hidden futures, difficult truths, the matter of heirs and the paths you've seen. I know, but not tonight. He pressed his lips to her marked temple. Tonight, we celebrate survival. Tomorrow, we begin the hard work of honest rule. She leaned into his warmth. Together, no other way. As servants lit celebration fires and wine began to flow, Seraphine let herself feel something she'd denied for 7 years. Hope. Not for a perfect future, those didn't exist, but for an honest one, faced with clear eyes and clasped hands. The mark on her cheek pulsed with gentle warmth. For the first time since her gift manifested, it felt like a blessing. 3 months after the trials, Seraphine stood in the palace's highest tower, watching dawn break over a kingdom in transformation. The veil that had hidden her for 7 years lay folded on a table, gathering dust. She touched her mark, now spread like silver filigree across half her face, beautiful rather than terrible, blessing rather than curse. The council meets in an hour, Theron said from the doorway, ready to terrify more nobles into social reform? Ay, she smiled. Lord Valence still hasn't forgiven me for suggesting he pay his miners fair wages. He'll forgive you when revolution doesn't burn down his estates. He crossed to stand beside her. The futures? shifting. The revolution's probability has dropped to 3 in 10, still dangerous but improving. And the other matter? Her hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. I looked last night. He tensed. And? She lives. Tears gathered in Seraphine's eyes. In the new futures, our daughter lives. Not easily, she'll face challenges, fears, those who would use her gifts. But she lives, Theron, grows, thrives. He pulled her close, his own eyes bright. What changed? We did. By being open about my gift, by teaching the kingdom to accept rather than fear, we create a world where she can exist safely. She laughed through her tears. The angel was right. Choice shapes fate more than sight ever could. When? Spring. When roses bloom in the Queen's garden. The Queen's garden doesn't have roses. You hate roses, they remind you of the temple trials. Then I suppose the king will have to plant some. New roses for new beginnings. He kissed her then, deep and full of promise. When they parted, both were smiling. Your Majesties? Lord Aldrich appeared, looking harried. The petitioners have begun arriving for the monthly oracle's circle. The line stretches around the palace. The line stretches around the palace. How many? Seraphine asked. Over 200. It seems saving Duke Heron's daughter from the flux has made believers of many. She sighed. It would be a long day. But each person who came seeking futures was one more who accepted her gift, who saw oracles as guides rather than monsters. Send the first 20 to the blue chamber, she said. I'll see them in groups, it helps to read futures that intersect. As Lord Aldrich departed, Theron caught her hand. You don't have to see them all. The binding allows you to refuse. I know. But each future glimpsed is a catastrophe, potentially prevented, a joy possibly enhanced. It's what I'm meant to do. Save the world one vision at a time? Save people. The world saves itself when enough people change. They descended to the blue chamber, where nervous petitioners waited, farmers worried about harvests, merchants seeking profitable ventures, parents frightened for their children's futures, so very human in their hopes and fears. Who's first? Seraphine asked gently. An elderly woman stepped forward, gnarled hands trembling. Please, Oracle. My grandson, he's taken ill. The healers don't know what ails him. Is there hope? Seraphine let her sight unfurl, controlled now rather than commanding. Futures sparkled like threads, and she followed the ones that led to healing. There is hope, she said warmly, but not from healers. Take him to the stone waters, the hot springs near Mount Ethel. The minerals there will ease his lungs. He'll recover fully by winter's end. Kololau pyres. The woman wept with relief. Bless you, Oracle, bless you. One by one, they came. Not all futures were bright, she couldn't lie, wouldn't offer false hope. But even dark futures could be shaped. A merchant destined for bankruptcy learned to change his trade routes. A soldier foresaw his own death and chose retirement instead. Small changes rippling outward, reshaping tomorrow. You were wrong, you know, Theron murmured during a brief break. About what? That night before the trials. You said you'd never woven a future where you were free. He gestured to the chamber, to the people waiting with hope rather than fear. Look at yourself now. She did, catching her reflection in the window. The silver mark no longer made her monstrous but magnificent. Oracle, advisor, future queen, mother-to-be. Free to use her gift, free to love, free to be. I suppose even fate weavers can be surprised by fate. The best ones always are. As the next petitioner entered, a young woman clutching a love letter, seeking to know if her heart's choice would bring joy, Seraphine felt the truth of it. She'd spent 7 years hiding, certain her gift was a curse, but curses were just blessings, misunderstood, power feared rather than embraced. Come, she told the young woman. Let's see what tomorrow holds. The mark on her cheek pulsed with warmth, and for the first time in her life, Seraphine was exactly where she belonged. Not hiding in shadows or behind veils, but standing in the light where truth lived. Where even the most feared gifts could become the greatest blessings. Where love could transform any curse. Where the future, for all its uncertainty, had never looked brighter. As the sun climbed higher, painting the blue chamber in gold, Seraphine continued her work. Each vision shared, each future glimpsed, wove a stronger fabric of acceptance through the kingdom. The veil that had hidden her for 7 years would never touch her face again. She was Seraphine, Fate Weaver, and Future Queen, and she was finally, truly, free.